Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're tackling one of the most wildly entertaining, emotionally exhausting, and globally celebrated spectacles on the entire planet. But hey, if you've ever watched the greatest tournament in sports and found yourself, just a little bit lost in all the math, you are definitely not alone. So let's dive right in and completely demystify how this group stage actually works.
Picture this. You're watching the matches, the football is absolutely fantastic. But then, all these numbers start flashing on the screen. The tables are updating constantly. Suddenly, some teams are celebrating like they just won the lottery, while others look like they are in full-blown panic mode. And you might have absolutely no idea why. Well, that right there, that is the magic of the group stage. And I promise you, once you understand the mechanics behind those shifting numbers, watching these matches becomes 10 times more exciting.
To start off, we really have to look at the sheer scale of the 2026 format. We're talking about 48 teams. That is a massive, massive number. In fact, that's literally more teams competing than in any other tournament in history. So it begs the question, how do you manage a massive global field of 48 different countries without the whole thing just evolving into total chaos?
Well, here's the solution. Those 48 teams are carefully divided up into 12 distinct groups, with 4 teams in each group. And within that little 4-team bubble, every single team is going to play the other 3 teams exactly once. That means there are exactly 6 total matches in every group, and each individual team is guaranteed to play exactly 3 games. Basically, it's a highly structured, perfectly contained mini-tournament before the knockout rounds even begin. Simple enough so far, right?
Section 1. The math of points, earning your keep. Because in the group stage, everything revolves around a very specific currency, and that currency is points. Here is the golden rule you really need to remember. If you win a game, you are rewarded with 3 points. This is a massive haul. The whole system is specifically designed to heavily reward the teams that go out there, take risks, and secure a victory.
But, what if nobody wins? If you draw a game, you don't go home empty-handed. The spoils are divided up, and each team earns exactly 1 point. And as we're going to see a bit later, surviving a really tough match and escaping with just 1 single point, that can sometimes be the absolute lifeline a team needs.
And then, of course, there's the alternative. If you lose a game, you get absolutely nothing, 0 points. Walking away from a match completely empty-handed is just devastating in a tournament this short.
What's really interesting here is how this tournament format frames the pressure. At the end of the group stage, all these points are tallied up to rank the teams, kind of like the NFL regular season standings. But instead of spreading out your wins and losses over a long, forgiving 17-game season, your entire fate is compressed into just 3 games. The margin for error is essentially 0. Every single match matters enormously.
So, the absolutely crucial thing is looking at how these points actually stack up. If a team wins all 3 of their games, they get 9 points. That's the maximum possible score. And that team advances to the next round easy peasy. On the flip side, a team that loses all 3 games gets 0 points. And well, they go straight home. But look right then in the middle. Most of the drama happens in that messy middle, where teams are desperately fighting for 4, 5, or 6 points, because that is exactly where the math gets incredibly complicated.
Section 2. Who survives? The cutthroat math. Let's break down exactly who makes it out of this mathematical battleground alive. Look at how the tension builds here. Out of the 4 teams in any given group, the top 2 point earners automatically advance to the next round. Boom, that secures 24 teams right away. But here is the massive twist for the 2026 format. 8 additional teams also advance. These are the absolute best third-place finishers pulled from across all 12 groups. That means out of the 4 teams in a group, up to 3 can potentially advance. Literally only the absolute worst third-place teams overall and the fourth-place teams from every group are sent packing.
Which brings us to a really massive realization, and I just love this quote. Even if you lose your first game, you are not out. Because of that third-place lifeline, you can suffer a completely devastating loss on day 1 and still fully recover. That dynamic is exactly what makes every single minute of these matches so intense. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is truly over until the final whistle of the very last game.
Section 3. Tiebreakers. Breaking the deadlock.
So, what happens if that final whistle blows, the group stage is officially over, and 2 teams are sitting there with the exact same number of points? Well, they don't just flip a coin to decide who goes home. YouTube doesn't run a poll to decide. There is a very strict, highly specific order of operations. Step 1 is goal difference. Step 2 is total goals scored. And Step 3 is the head-to-head result.
There are a few more obscure ones after that, but honestly, these 3 steps will resolve almost every tiebreaker situation you are ever going to witness. Let's really break down step 1 because it dictates so much of the strategy you actually see out on the field. Goal difference is simply the number of goals your team scored minus the number of goals your team let in. For example, say you scored 4 goals over your 3 matches, but you let 1 goal in. Your goal difference is +3. If you're tied on points with another team, whoever has the higher goal difference ranks higher. This perfectly explains why you'll sometimes see a vastly superior team relentlessly running up the score to win, say, 5-0. They aren't just showing off, they are aggressively hoarding their goal difference just in case they need to break a deadlock later.
Section 4. Match Day 3, the ultimate climax. We have arrived at the absolute peak of the tournament, the most chaotic, dramatic day of the entire group stage. Now, for the first 2 matches of the group, teams play at different times. But for Match Day 3, that's the final round of group games, all games within a specific group are played at exactly the same time. Why? Well, imagine if one game finished before the other. The teams playing later would know the exact mathematical result they need to advance. They could literally just pass the ball back and forth, play for a safe draw on purpose, and completely kill the integrity of the sport. Simultaneous kickoffs completely destroy that safety net. Because both games are happening at the exact same time, the teams on the pitch have no idea what is happening in the other match. Everything is live. Total uncertainty rules the day. The standings table is actively changing by the second, with every single goal scored in either stadium. The tension is almost unbearable. This is the day shock results happen. This is when massive, giant nations are unexpectedly sent packing, and this is when the entire world just stops everything to watch.
So, here's some actionable advice for you. Mark June 25th in your calendar. That is when Match Day 3 kicks off for the 2026 tournament. And whatever you do, make sure you have multiple screens going. Keep multiple matches open at once if you can, because you are not going to want to miss a single second of how these intertwined games play out.
Okay, let's do a rapid-fire summary so you have this totally locked in. We've got a historic 48 teams. You earn 3 points for a win and 1 for a draw. The top 2 teams from each group automatically advance, and they're joined by the 8 best third-place teams overall. If teams tie on points, the first tiebreaker is always goal difference. And finally, Match Day 3 means simultaneous games and absolute glorious chaos.
Now you know exactly what to look for when you're watching. When the commentators drop that classic, dramatic line, they need a win and a favor from the other game, you don't have to be confused anymore. You'll know exactly what that means. It means their points aren't enough on their own, and their survival completely depends on the math of the simultaneous match happening right at that very moment.
So, I'll leave you with this thought as we wrap up this explainer. You know the rules, you know the stakes, and you know how incredibly tight the math can get over just 3 games. When Match Day 3 inevitably arrives and the clock is ticking down, whose favor will your team be begging for? Keep that in mind, enjoy the beautiful game, and I'll see you in the next explainer.